Naughty Dog, please, is Jak the Mar? Like, is he the Mar? Like, I can't take this anymore. No one can.
Jak beats things all the time. Hey, Jak?
How's it going, everyone? I'm Vivi and welcome back to some more Jak and Daxter. So, let's all forget about that cringy intro, alright? Now, what are the biggest mysteries in the Jak and Daxter series? 1. Where is Jak for? And 2. This whole thing about, is Jak the Mar? For how long have people been debating about this? It is insane. The number of topics, threads you find online these days, it's pretty big. This is one big question that hasn't been answered yet. And why is that? We don't know. Now, do I have an answer to this? What do I think about this whole mystery? Well, the point of the video is not to give you an exact answer. We don't have facts or anything like that, but what I think is this. No, I don't think Jak is the Mar, but it is still possible. With all of the games we have right now, it seems like Jak is not the Mar, but it's time travel, so it can still happen. For any confirmation or anything that really proves that Jak is not the Mar, or if he is the Mar, we don't have that sort of information. Now, before I dive into this theory, who is Mar? Let's go over that first. He was the founder of Haven City. He was an ancient enemy to Horicon, the Metalheads, and Core, their leader. He was chosen by the Precursors to defend the planet, and many structures of him can be seen in Haven City. He's the one who designed the shield wall in Haven City. He was the face, the dynasty of the House of Mar. There's the Seal of Mar, which is a family crest, and young Jak had that around his neck. But what happened to the Mar? People seem to think that he disappeared suddenly, mysteriously. Some even believe he's dead, and is believed to be buried in his tomb, the Tomb of Mar, where the last precursor egg or stone can be found. That's where he hid it. Now, about this precursor egg, he had intended to use that with the gun he had designed, the gun which would destroy the Metalhead's nest. Now, just before Damus's death, Jak's father, he told Jak to find his son wearing the amulet, the Seal of Mar, which is a symbol of lineage of the House of Mar. Those words came out of Damus's mouth, so perhaps Mar was an ancestor. Therefore, Damus and Jak, their descendants. Keep that in mind. With that being said, what started this whole is Jak Mar thing? What is going on? 1, which is the most obvious, I guess, Jak being named after the Mar, and 2, Ashlyn saying, wait, Jak is the Mar? I think that's what started this whole debate.
Wait, Jak is Mar? The Mar?
Why do I think that Jak is not Mar, with all the info we have so far? 2 things can, I guess, explain this. 1, let's look at the statue. Jak, he has a pointy chin. The statue, the facial structure doesn't match Jak's. Okay, I know what you're all gonna say right now, but dude, it's just a statue. Maybe the model was not meant to look exactly like Mar's. Okay, that could be true, but also, I think the statue could have been a hint by Naughty Dog that Jak is simply not the Mar. And this question they had introduced to the series, I think it was a way to get fans hyped up about the next game, I don't know. But anyways, let's move on to the second point. Who was able to open the Tomb of Mar? The Precursor said, welcome, heir of Mar, okay? He said, chosen one stands before me. You know what, let me play the cutscene for you.
Must be cautious, child. The tests of manhood are sure to be fraught with peril, and Mar's heir must face them alone.
It's okay, kid. You can do it. It's just a deep, pitch black, sure to be filled to the brim with painful death old tomb. I wouldn't go in there.
Welcome, heir of Mar. Finally, the chosen one stands before me. Enter and prove yourself worthy to claim the ancient birthright. No. This child is too young to face the tests.
If Jak is the Mar, that makes him his own ancestor. Why would young Jak be his heir if he is Mar? Heir is a successor, not a descendant. We're not talking about ancestry. The Precursor saw someone worthy enough to access the gate and find the Precursor. I mean, come on, I think the Precursor would have sensed something that Jak was Mar, young Jak, aka Jak who time traveled from an unknown future. We're talking about the same blood, same person. Knowing the Precursors, I think they would have felt it. Oh, Mar Mar stands before me, welcome. But we didn't have that. That right there tells us that Jak is simply a descendant, Mar being a separate person. Then again, I know what you're gonna say right now, but Jak could still be Mar, and young Jak, who grows up and becomes Mar in the future, could count as an heir. Yes, but something tells me the precursor would have sensed it. Then again, the precursors could have been pretending, hiding the fact that Mar was standing right in front of them. Now, I want to take you guys back to the introduction of Jak 2. Remember when Kor said, "You can't hide from me, boy"? Perhaps he was chasing after Mar. How can we explain him popping out of the rift gate? I did talk about this in a time travel video, but here's another scenario. Kor, he shows up through the portal and he's from an unknown future. We can also say Mar is from an unknown future, and why? Because we can say Mar time traveled simply to escape Kor. That was probably his last plan, last resort. What happened next is Kor showed up to the rift gate, causes Sandover village to get destroyed by the metalheads. Kor then leaves and ends up in Haven City, which was not part of his plan. What happened to Mar then? He was escaping through time. What happens in the end? Mar ends up in a time and builds Haven. At the time which he starts founding Haven City, he was safe from Kor. Kor wasn't around. Kor appeared in the Jak 2 timeline when Haven City already existed. By the time Kor went to that future, Mar already disappeared, and to later discover that Mar hit the precursor within his tomb. Let me re-explain this slowly. So Kor, he existed for eons. A day comes where Mar is born, or shows up, let's keep it at that. What happens is, Mar finds the last precursor egg. Kor discovers that he has a new threat, Mar himself. What happens is, Mar escapes through time to simply escape Kor. He succeeds. Why? Because he later time traveled again and ends up in a time where he decides to found Haven City. What happened to Kor? Using the rift gate, he ended up in the future of Haven City, aka Jak 2, which was not part of his plan at all. He was looking for Mar, but he didn't find him. All he found out is that Mar kept the precursor egg within his tomb. In the timeline Kor ended up, Jak 2, Mar had already disappeared, or died. So again, before Mar's death, the Metalheads' leader was absent, only to show up in the future, in the Jak 2 timeline. To kinda re-summarize my time travel video, well, part of it, my first theory was that Kor peeked through time to see Onin's prediction. Young Jak, time traveling to Sandover village, growing up and going back to the future to face Kor. He wanted to see that himself. If Jak were Mar, he'd be his own grandfather, right? Let's say. He who created a lineage and his own father who then creates Jak, aka Mar. Kinda messy, right? How can we summarize this whole messiness in 2 words? Bootstrap paradox. What is that? Well, it's a person who time travels to the past to look for a person, only to discover that that person doesn't even exist. They realize that the person they're looking for, they are that person. And that leaves us with one big question. Who was that person in the past in the first place? If Jak were Mar, he would have to go back to the past, but he didn't. We got Jak X instead. But like I said in the beginning, Jak being Mar is still possible. Jak can still go through time. Now, what's the whole thing with Ashlyn? She just said Mar as in, wait, his name is Mar as in the Mar? That's how I see it. That's it. Okay, yes, Seem did nod, but that probably just meant yes, he was named after the Mar. That's how I see it. And that whole sentence from Onin.
Onin is very proud of what you did.
What I did? What you did, what you do, it's all the same. Onan welcomes you, blah 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 blah, the usual boring salutations. She says it is good to see you again, Jak. But we've never met before.
Oh, it's nice to see you again, Jak. He wasn't talking about Mar. He was just simply referring to young Jak. Another one from Onin. Look what you've done. That's what Pecker had translated. I think Onin was referring to how he grew up in Sandover village and came back to the future to save Haven City. Okay, Jak wore a precursor armor that belonged to Mar. I don't think that means anything. He simply wore an armor that was worn by a different person. And the whole thing with the precursors at the ending of Jak 3, they wanted to show him the universe. And they told him this universe needs a hero. At that point, many people started speculating, oh, maybe Jak went back to the past and became Mar and then came back. It doesn't sound crazy, but how can Jak come back if he's dead? Unless he's not. And we saw that Jak decided not to go, he had no purpose, let's say. If he were destined to time travel at that exact moment during the ending of Jak 3, not doing so would cause the timeline to break, cause you know Mar is meant to go back in time and found Haven City. And again, like I said, if he did time travel to become Mar, if Mar is dead, Jak should be dead. But no, he came back. Now for those saying, why did Naughty Dog name Jak the Mar? There's a reason for doing that. Well, many people have other people's names, big deal. But there's one thing I'd like to say. Maybe the precursors did take Jak back in time and he became Mar, but then he comes back and he's young again? Isn't he supposed to be old? One thing I can think of which doesn't sound very likely to me. You know how the precursors transform the humans into Otcells? What if they can make a human young again? What if that's what they did to Jak? The precursors from the future took Jak back to the past, he grew up, became Mar, founded Haven City, and then the precursors took him back to the future. Maybe that could explain Mar's sudden disappearance. There's one thing one of the precursors had pointed out. It was a very small comment, a remark. Oh, maybe it was in the past? And then the other precursor said, oh, and about that, they were about to explain it to Jak, I guess by showing him the universe.
You are the greatest of heroes. You have turned the tide against the Dark Makers, and together we will win this war.
But dude, there are like way more challenges in the future.
Or was it the past?
Yes, I was getting to that.
What I think the next developer can do with Jak 4, if that happens to be a thing in the future, maybe Jak and Daxter could be two people who influenced Mar to found Haven City. In a sequel, they could time travel to the past, meet Mar, and help him, I guess. And it would put this whole debate to an end. If they decide to go with, oh, Jak is Mar, then that would mean Jak follows his destiny and dies. If he disappeared mysteriously, where would he go? Did the precursors take him back to the future? That we don't know. My honest opinion about all this, it was Naughty Dog's way of keeping people interested with the series. Oh, what if this question gets answered in the next game? I'll buy the next game. But the sequel we got did not talk about Mar at all. We got a racing game. So that makes me think Naughty Dog had not intended to make Jak the Mar. Why would you leave such a big question unanswered? Why would you skip that and make a racing game? But that doesn't mean Jak being Mar is impossible. It's still doable. A team could decide to make Jak finally go back to the past and found Haven City. So there you have it, folks. We don't really have a yes and no answer to this question. It's all about speculating and theorizing, that is all. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I know many of you were waiting for this one, so hopefully you enjoyed it, and I hope you did not find it confusing, because out of all games I've played, Ratchet & Clank Sly Cooper, I think Jak has the most confusing timeline ever. So yeah, this is it for the video. Leave all of your thoughts in the comment section below. I've been VV, and thanks for watching.